Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The topic I would like to share with you now is the mathematical miracle of the Qur'an and why we need to follow Qur'an alone. God commands us to verify what comes to us. You shall not accept any information, unless you verify it for yourself. I have given you the hearing, the eyesight, and the brain, and you are responsible for using them. Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 17, verse 36. Throughout our discussions we have talked about praying the way the Qur'an tells us, not the way the Hadith and Sunnah dictate. Why should we follow the Qur'an alone? Why should we leave the practices of our parents, and the traditions of our religion? The answer is pure and simple: God tells us to. When they are told, follow what God has revealed herein, they say, we follow only what we found our parents doing. What if their parents did not understand, and were not guided? Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 2 verse 170, he tells us that everything we need is in the Qur'an. All the creatures on earth, and all the birds that fly with wings, are communities like you. We did not leave anything out of this book. To their Lord, all these creatures will be summoned. Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 6 verse 38. This proves to us that God included everything in the Qur'an that we need. He did not leave even the smallest thing out that would need to be added by Hadith and Sunnah. He tells us that the Qur'an is fully detailed and complete. Shall I seek other than God as a source of law, when He has revealed to you this book fully detailed? Those who received the scripture recognize that it has been revealed from your Lord, truthfully. You shall not harbor any doubt. The word of your Lord is complete, in truth and justice. Nothing shall abrogate His words. He is the hearer, the omniscient. Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 6 verse 114 to 115. Verse 6:114 tells us that we should not seek any other source of law beyond this fully detailed Qur'an. And verse 6:115 tells us that nothing will abrogate the Qur'an. Going to Hadith and Sunnah or the teachings of the scholars or the Imams as a source of law is categorically against these Quranic verses. God tells us that He did not run out of words. He doesn't need anyone to complete the teachings He gave us. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out, before the words of my Lord run out. Even if we double the ink supply. Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 18 verse 109. All of these verses make it very clear that we must take only Qur'an. But how about all of the verses of the Qur'an which say we should follow and obey the Messenger? What do those verses mean if not that we should follow the Hadith and Sunnah? To find the answer, perhaps it will help to remember the history of the Hadith and Sunnah. They were passed on by oral tradition for generations after the Prophet's death. It was not until a century and a half after his death that they began to be gathered and written down. Then thousands upon thousands of hadith were collected. Years and years of study have been required to decide which hadith are most likely authentic, and which are most likely fabricated. Out of the hundreds of thousands of hadith, only a small portion are accepted as authentic, and no one can know absolutely that any single one of them is actually what the Prophet said. Even among the narrations taken to be the most authentic, there are terrible discrepancies among the hadith. And often they go directly against clear commandments in the Qur'an. So, what do we do? How do we follow the Prophet? God tells us that the only hadith we need is the Qur'an. Have they not looked at the dominion of the heavens and the earth, and all the things God has created? Does it ever occur to them that the end of their life may be near? Which hadith, besides this, do they believe in? Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 7 verse 185. God has revealed herein the best hadith, a book that is consistent, and points out both ways, to heaven and hell. The skins of those who reverence their Lord cringe therefrom, then their skins and their hearts soften up for God's message. Such is God's guidance, He bestows it upon whoever wills, to be guided. As for those sent astray by God, nothing can guide them. Qur'an, the Final Testament, Surah 39 verse 23. The Qur'an is God's hadith. What other hadith could we want? These are God's revelations that we recite to you truthfully. In which hadith other than God and his revelations do they believe? Qur'an, the Final Testament 45:6. Which hadith, other than this, do they uphold? Qur'an, the Final Testament 77:50. In their history, there is a lesson for those who possess intelligence. This is not fabricated hadith. This, Qur'an, confirms all previous scriptures, provides the details of everything, and is a beacon and mercy for those who believe. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 12 verse 111. What does God tell us about the other hadith, besides the Qur'an? Among the people, there are those who uphold baseless hadith, and thus divert others from the path of God without knowledge, and take it in vain. These have incurred a shameful retribution. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 31:6, God cites the example of a man who deals with disputing partners, hadith, compared to a man who deals with only one consistent source, Qur'an. Are they the same? Praise be to God, most of them do not know. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 39 verse 29. If we are to follow the teachings of the Qur'an alone, how can so many Muslims have gone wrong? God answers this question. Therefore, let me deal with those who reject this hadith, we will lead them on whence they never perceive. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 68 verse 44. They have rejected the only real hadith of the Prophet, the Qur'an, and so God leads them on. But how can so many people over the last 1,300 years be wrong? God tells us first that, most people will not believe. Most people, no matter what you do, will not believe. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 12 verse 103. Then he tells us that of those who believe, most will be idol worshippers. The majority of those who believe in God do not do so without committing idol worship. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 12 verse 106. If you believe that the millions of Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, etc., are committing idol worship, why should traditional sectarian Muslims be any different? This is a shocking thought, I know. But think about this example, when God told the angels to bow before Adam. Those who obeyed his orders were worshipping him, not Adam. This teaches us that idolatry is not bowing before something other than God, but obeying someone or something other than God. Following teachings other than those revealed by him. The Qur'an is the only absolutely authentic hadith. We know that every word of it came out of Muhammad's mouth. Not only that, God tells us that if Muhammad had issued any religious teachings outside of the Qur'an, he would have been punished, had he uttered any other teachings. We would have punished him. We would have stopped the revelations to him. None of you could have helped him. This is a reminder for the righteous. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 69 verse 44-48. Also, God told Muhammad that he was to follow the Qur'an, and that he, not Muhammad, would explain it. Do not move your tongue to hasten it. It is we who will collect it into Qur'an. Once we recite it, you shall follow such a Qur'an. Then it is we who will explain it. Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 75 verse 16-19. We see here that the two major reasons the scholars tell us that we need the hadith are totally against the Qur'an. They say that the Qur'an is not enough, the hadith expands the laws of the Qur'an and gives more details, and they claim that the hadith explains the Qur'an. God tells us in the above verses that Muhammad never uttered any religious teachings except the Qur'an, and that he did not explain the Qur'an. We also know from the Qur'an that Muhammad will be very disappointed with the Muslims on the Day of Judgment. The Messenger said, "My Lord, my people have deserted this Qur'an." Qur'an, the Final Testament Surah 25 verse 30. How will the Prophet's people desert the Qur'an? By not obeying it, and following other teachings. We must follow Qur'an alone or we are not following Qur'an. We are not following Muhammad. From all these Quranic verses we can see that much of what we have been taught as Islam is not at all Islamic. It is from humans, not from God. However good intentioned it may be, it is distortion, and it keeps us from the truth that God sent to us, the Qur'an. And from following the Qur'an alone. If the teachings of true Islam have been so badly corrupted, how do we know that the Qur'an has not also been corrupted? In fact, how do we know that it is from God in the first place? The answer to these questions lies in an astounding discovery. An intricate mathematical code, far beyond the ability of the human intellect, has been discovered embedded in the very fabric of the scripture. This code was deciphered by computers and is so comprehensive that it guarantees the integrity of the text. It assures us that the verses, words, letters, and all parameters of the original Arabic text were written down in accordance with a divine pattern. The discoverer of this pattern, Dr. Rashad Khalifa, came to refer to it as the mathematical code, or the mathematical miracle of the Quran. As you will see, it is based on the number 19. The code's simple facts. 1. There are 114 chapters in the Quran, or 19 times 6. 2. The total number of verses in the Quran is 6,346, or 19 times 334. 3. When you add the 30 different numbers that are mentioned in the Quran's text, i.e. 1 God, 2 brothers, etc. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 19, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 99, 100, 200, 300, 1000. 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 50,000, and 100,000. The total is 162,146, or 19 times 8,534. 4. The first statement in Quran, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, consists of 19 Arabic letters. Known as the Basmala, it prefaces every chapter except chapter 9. 5. Though missing from chapter 9, exactly 19 chapters later the Basmala occurs twice. Chapter 27 has the statement at its beginning and in verse 30. This makes the total number of times the Basmala occurs in the Quran 114, or 19 times 6. 6. It follows that since there are 19 chapters between the missing Basmala and the extra one, the sum of those chapter numbers is a multiple of 19. The sum of any 19 consecutive numbers is a multiple of 19. But the total, 342, is also the exact number of words between the two occurrences of the Bas Mala in chapter 27. This number, 342, is 19 times 18. 7. Each word in the Basmala occurs in the Quran a number of times which is a multiple of 19. The first word ism, name, occurs 19 times. The second word Allah, God, occurs 2,698 times, or 19 times 142. The third word Al-Rahman, most gracious, occurs 57 times, or 19 times 3. The fourth word Al-Rahim, most merciful, occurs 114 times, or 19 times 6. 8. The first revelation that came to the Prophet Muhammad was 19 words. 9. The total number of letters in the 19 words of the first revelation is 76, 19 times 4. 10. Although they were first in order of revelation, these verses are placed at the beginning of chapter 96 in the final order of compilation. This chapter is atop the last 19 chapters. 11. Chapter 96 consists of 304 Arabic letters, or 19 times 16. And those 304 letters make up 19 verses. 12. The last chapter revealed, chapter 110, has 19 words, and its first verse is 19 letters. 13. As mentioned above, the word Allah, God, occurs 2,698 times, 19x 142. If you add the numbers of the verses where this word occurs, the total is 118,123, or 19 times 6,217. 14. The main message in the Quran is that there is only one God. The number of times that the word wad, one, is used to refer to this concept of one God is 19. 15. At the time of the revelation of the Quran, letters were used as numbers, in the same way that the Romans used their letters, now known as Roman numerals. The importance of the concept of one God is underscored by the fact that if you take the numerical values assigned to the letters of WAD, W equals 6, A equals 1, H equals 8, D equals 4, the total is 19. These values are known as the geometrical value of the letters. It is very interesting that the geometrical value for the Hebrew word one or vahid is also 19. 16. The word Qur'an, in all of its grammatical forms, occurs in 38 different chapters. 38 is 19 times 2. If you exclude any occurrences where it refers to a Qur'an other than the actual Qur'an which we have, for example, one excluded verse refers to a hypothetical non-Arabic Qur'an, and add the chapter and verse numbers for those occurrences. The total is 4,408, or 19 times 232. 17. The Qur'an is mentioned a total of 58 times, but one of them refers to a Qur'an other than this which the disbelievers demanded. So the actual number of references to the actual book the Qur'an is 57 or 19 times 3. 18. Within the 114 chapters of the Qur'an, 29 of them are prefixed with certain letters of the Arabic alphabet, or Quranic initials. Intermixed between the first initial chapter, chapter 2, and the last initial chapter, chapter 68. There are 38 non-initial chapters, or 19 times 2. 19 in this same group of chapters, from chapter 2 to chapter 68, there are 19 alternating sets of initialed and non-initial chapters. 20. The total number of verses making up this group of chapters is 5,263, 19 times 277. 21. Within this group of chapters there are also 2,641 occurrences of the word Allah, or 19 times 139. That leaves 57, or 19 times 4, occurrences of that word outside of this group. 22. If you add the chapter and verse numbers of the 57 occurrences of Allah outside the initialed section, the total is 2,432 or 19 times 128. Quranic initials. 29 chapters of the Quran begin with letters or groups of letters. For centuries Muslim and Orientalist scholars have proposed theories about their meaning. In the 1960s, Dr. Rashad Khalifa, a Muslim scientist and computer expert, began a computerized analysis of the Quran to try to determine their significance. Dr. Rashad Khalifa originally theorized that those initials occurred with greater frequency within their respective chapters. Indeed, he found this to be true in all cases except chapter 36. The initials of that chapter, Y and S, the Arabic letters Ya and Sin, occur in lower frequency than in the rest of the Quran. Further study of the data eventually brought the discovery that all of the initials occur in patterns, explained below, which could be reduced to multiples of the number 19. Dr. Khalifa came to refer to this patterning as the mathematical code of the Quran. These initials exhibit many aspects of that code, when looked at as individual sets, and when looked at together. Let us begin by looking at the single letter initials. The first one we will examine is the initial which has the English transliteration of Q. The initial Q. Kaf. There are several special phenomena having to do with the initial Q. Perhaps it can be seen as standing for Quran. This is especially so since there are 2 Q initial chapters, each with 57, 19 times 3, Qs in them. Thus the total of Qs in both chapters is 114, 19 times 6, the same number as the number of chapters in the Quran. The fact that both Q initial chapters contain exactly 57 Qs is quite remarkable because the first of them, chapter 42, is more than twice as long as the second, chapter 50. Another remarkable phenomenon is found by adding chapter numbers of the Q initial chapters with the number of verses in those chapters. Chapter 42 has 53 verses, 42 plus 53 is 95, 19 times 5. If we look at the other Q initial chapter 50, it has 45 verses, 50 plus 45 is also 95. Dr. Khalifa's idea that Q might stand for the Quran is strengthened by discoveries made after his assassination. Submitter's perspective, Masjid Tucson, December, 1990. When you look at the chapters between and inclusive of the Q initial chapters, chapters 42 and 53, there are some interesting facts. First, the total number of Qs occurring in that group of chapters is 456, or 19 times 24. Also, the total number of verses in these 9 chapters is 403. Adding this number to the sum of the chapter numbers, 414, yields 817, or 19 times 43. Then, if you look at the geometrical value of the initials in the verses containing initials for those chapters, the total is 570, or 19 times 30. Finally, let us examine the chapter and verse numbers for the 6 occurrences of the word Qur'an in those chapters. 42:7, 43:3, 43:31, 46:29, 47:24 and 50:1. When you add just the unique chapter numbers, 42 plus 43 plus 46 plus 47 plus 50, the total is 228, or 19 times 12. Likewise, when you add the verse numbers, 7 plus 3 plus 31 plus 29 plus 24 plus 1, the total is 95, or 19 times 5. The initial n, noon. This initial prefixes only one chapter, number 68. Chapter 68 is the last initial chapter. In the case of this one, initial only, the letter's name is spelled out in the Arabic noon wa noon. The total number of occurrences of n in this chapter, including the 2 occurrences in the initial's name, is 133, or 19x7. The initial s dot Sod. S prefixes 3 chapters, 7, 19, and 38. The total number of occurrences of s in these 3 chapters is 152, or 19 times 8. At this point it should probably be mentioned, that Dr. Khalifa could not ignore the implications of the mathematical structure in the Qur'an, which clearly demands strict adherence to the Qur'an. And, as we saw at the beginning of this appendix, strict adherence to the Qur'an means a rejection of any traditional Muslim teachings that are not based directly on the Qur'an, as sources of religious guidance. The fury of the traditional clergy at Khalifa's conclusions and his straightforward statement of them eventually led to his assassination. It should not be surprising, then, that those same clergy have attacked the discoveries. Most of these attacks have been focused on the Quranic initials, and one of their major arguments is with the Sod. This is because in modern copies of the Qur'an the Arabic word bastatan is written with a Sod rather than Sin. This would increase the count of Sod by 1, and it would no longer be divisible by 19. But the oldest available copy of the Qur'an, the Tashkent copy, writes bastatan with a Sin. Dr. Khalifa includes a reproduction from that Tashkent copy in his translation. Qur'an, The Final Testament, 1989, p. 614. In most cases, the initials occur in sets. Next, we will examine some of those sets. The initials Y.S, Yasin. These 2 initials are found at the beginning of chapter 36. The number of times these 2 letters appear in this chapter is 285, or 19 times 15. The Qur'an uses 2 different forms of Y, one of which is very subtle and difficult for non-Arabic readers to distinguish. Dr. Khalifa's book, Qur'an. Visual Presentation of the Miracle. Islamic Productions, 1982, shows every Y and S marked in the Arabic text of chapter 36. The initials H.M, Hamim. This set of initials is found initializing the 7 consecutive chapters 40 through 46. The total number of occurrences of these 2 initials in these chapters is 2147, or 19 times 113. The initials A.S.Q, Ain Sin Kaf. Chapter 42 is the only chapter with a set of initials, HM, in the first verse and another, A.S.Q, in verse 2. Of course, the H's and M's figure in the counts for H.M as mentioned above. The number of times the letters of The second set of initials, A.S.Q, occur in chapter 42 is 209, or 19 times 11. The initials A.L.M, Aleph Lam Mim, is the most common letter in Arabic, L is the second most common, and M is the third most common. This combination of initials prefix 6 chapters, 2, 3, 29, 30, 31, and 32. In every one of these 6 chapters, the total number of occurrences of A's, L's and M's is divisible by 19. Of course, this means that the total number of occurrences of these initials in the 6 chapters is divisible by 19. The initials A.L.R, Aleph Lam Ra. These initials prefix chapters 10, 11, 12, 14, and 15. Again, in each of these chapters the total number of A's, L's, and R's is divisible by 19. Initials A.L.M.R, Aleph Lam Mim Ra. This group of initials prefixes only chapter 13. Their total combined frequency in that chapter is 1482, or 19 times 78. Initials A.L.M.S. Alam Lam Mim Sad. Chapter 7 is the only chapter prefixed by this combination of initials. The total number of occurrences of these letters in this chapter is 5320, or 19 times 280. Note that the initial Sad also interacts with the Sads of chapters 19 and 38 to produce a total of Sads which is divisible by 19. See the discussion of the initial Sad above. Initials K.H.Ya.S. Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad. This longest set of initials begins chapter 19. The total number of occurrences of these initials in that chapter is 798, or 19 times 42. Initials H, Ha, T.H, Ta-Ha, T.S, Ta-Sin, and T.S.M, Ta-Sin Mim. These remaining 4 groups of initials have an interlocking and overlapping relationship that produces a combined total of 1767, or 19 times 93. Mathematical properties of the initialed surahs as a whole. Half of the Arabic alphabet, or 14 letters, are combined in various ways to make up 14 different sets of initials. These 14 sets initialize 29 different chapters. If you take the geometrical value of each of the 14 different letters occurring as initials and sum them, you get 693. Add to that 29 for the number of chapters and you get 722. Or 19 times 19 times 2. Also, if you add the geometrical values of each initial, 693 again, to the chapter numbers where each first occurs, totaling to 295, you get 988, or 19 times 52. For example, Aleph has the geometrical value of 1 and first occurs in chapter 2, Ha has the geometrical value of 5 and first occurs in chapter 19. Proceeding in this manner for all 14 initials gives you the total of 988. You will find more of these relationships in Rashad Khalifa's appendix, along with tables illustrating them. There is one more fact that must be included here. For each initial chapter, take the chapter number, add the number of Quranic initials which prefix it, and then add the number of verses containing initials. This number will be 1. For all chapters except 42, which has initials in 2 verses. As an example, the first initial chapter is chapter 2, it has 3 Quranic initials which occur in 1 verse. When we add 2 plus 3 plus 1 we get 6. Let us call this total the chapter total. When you sum all the chapter totals for the initial chapters you get 931, or 19 times 49. This in itself is amazing enough, but there is more. If you multiply the chapter number by the number of initials instead of adding them, and then add the number of verses containing initials, you still get a grand total that is a multiple of 19, 20, 52, or 19 times 108. You can illustrate for yourself how remarkable this is by trying to duplicate it. You will see that this definitely is not a mathematical property, and clearly indicates divine arrangement. Conclusion. We began this discussion with the question of whether we should follow the Quran alone, or also follow the traditional Sectarian practices of today's Islam, which run contrary to it. Even the most ardent supporter of Hadith and Sunnah must agree that it is impossible to absolutely authenticate even one of the traditions. The Qur'an, on the other hand, is the only scripture known to still exist in its original language and form. It has been guarded by a mathematical encoding, the complexity and inclusiveness of which becomes more and more evident with continuing research. My references. Appendix 1, Qur'an, The Final Testament, Rashad Khalifa Translator, Universal Unity, 1992, pages 375 to 403. Beyond Probability, God's Message in Mathematics, Abdullah Eric, Monotheist Productions International, 1992. Qur'an, Visual Presentation of the Miracle, Rashad Khalifa, Islamic Productions, 1982. The Computer Speaks, God's Message to the World, Rashad Khalifa, Renaissance Productions International, 1981. Thank you for your kind attention. Hope this will guide us to the right path, as we always mentioned during our daily prayer, and we know that Qur'an is the only sources as real guidance and to be able to distinguish between right and wrong. Amen.